Okay, everybody, good morning and welcome to Executive Committee meeting on November 10th, 2025. It's Happy Monday. I'm going to call our meeting to order at 10:03 a.m. Marcy, would you like to do introductions or roll call? Yes, we do have guests here too, but roll call, please.
Sure, absolutely. I'll start with you, Melissa.
Hi, Melissa Van Hook, Chair of the Council and a few other committees, including our Meaningful Careers Committee.
Great. Monica, thank you. Monica?
Monica Cooper, Self-Advocate, Chair of the Grant Committee.
Thank you, Monica. Vijay?
Good morning, all. Vijay, sorry here.
Thank you. Kelly?
Good morning, everyone. Kelly Roberts, council member.
Okay, and Kathy?
Good morning, Kathy Lewandowski, Chair of the Work Plan Review Committee.
Thank you, Kathy. Staff, John?
Good morning, John Myers, Executive Director.
Okay, Michael?
Good morning, Mike Leba, Contracts and Grants Coordinator.
Lonnie?
Good morning, Lonnie Saints here, Fiscal Manager.
Jason?
Good morning, Jason Sneed, Research and Communication Specialist.
Great. Is Sarah on the call?
I am.
There you go.
Another meeting. Sarah Roof, Communications Director.
Great. And then, thank you, Sarah. And then our guest presentator is going to be Megan Donahue. Megan?
Good morning.
Great. Megan's with IHD. Anyone else on the call that I missed? Okay. Melissa, back to you.
Thank you, Marcy. Okay, let's move on to agenda item B, our minutes review and approval from our September 19th, 2025 Executive Committee meeting. I hope everybody had a chance to review those minutes. Before I call for a motion to approve, are there any corrections or notes that need to be made? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call for a motion to approve the minutes as written from September 19th, 2025 for Executive Committee. Do I have a motion?
This is Vijay, so moved.
Thank you, Vijay. Do I have a second?
This is Kathy. I second.
Thank you, Kathy. All those in favor of approval, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Is anyone not voting? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item C, our fiscal contracts update with Lonnie.
Thank you, Melissa. So the council received a total allotment of $1,501,328 for fiscal year 2023. A no-cost extension for the period of performance was granted through September 30th of this year. The council has fully liquidated these funds. The council has received a total allotment of $1,500,684 for fiscal year 2024. The obligation period is through September 30th of 2025, which we've met. We've fully obligated those funds. And the council requested a no-cost extension for the project period, which now runs through September 30th of 2026. There's approximately $87,913 remaining to be liquidated by September 30th of next year. The council has received a total allotment for fiscal year 2025 in the amount of $1,497,106. There's approximately $15,330 over obligated at this point. This gives the council a buffer should projects not fully spend their grant award. And also any overage can also be obligated with 2026 funds once they're received. However, because of the government shutdown, we don't have those funds. The obligation and project periods are through September 30th of 2026. The final report is due January 28th, 2028. And we're not anticipating a no-cost extension for these funds. So it's going to be key that we get all the work done by September 30th of 2026. Due to the government shutdown, we have not received any funding for federal year 2026 yet. Typically, by this point, there'd be a column for 2026. We were told prior to the shutdown to expect level funding. These funds will be used primarily for the 2027 projects. These projects will need to be determined as part of the new 5-year state plan. So we don't even really have our goal areas for 2027 yet. So there is still some time, but just know that the government shutdown has delayed some things. Any questions on this sheet? Okay, moving on to the next sheet. Thank you, John. This sheet shows the current projects funded by the council. All the new and continuing projects voted on at the September meeting are reflected. However, there's quite a few contracts that have not been finalized yet. So the work has not started and the obligations have not been set up in the system. However, they are reflected on these reports, and everything will be updated when finalized. So we're just waiting on final signatures for some of the ISAs and other contracts. Final invoices for the projects that ended in September 30th are due this week, so by November 15th. So by Friday, we should have a better idea of the unspent funds for the contracts that ended in September. Any questions on this sheet? Okay, the final sheet. This sheet has been updated to reflect the projects outlined in the fiscal year 2026 work plan, as well as the funding that has already been approved in the prior years. Again, the funding year is generally the year prior to the project year. For fiscal year 2025, funds will be used primarily for projects to be completed this year. So for fiscal year 2026 work plan projects. The administrative budget has been increased to reflect the work to be done with the comprehensive review and analysis. And this sheet will be updated with fiscal year 26 funding once we have received and determined the new goal areas as part of the 5-year state plan. And just a heads up too, the proposal that we'll be voting on to continue the work with the comprehensive review and analysis and the 5-year state plan, that contract runs through the end of December. And the funding's already been obligated for that. However, the new proposal is set to start January 1, and we will need $26 to fund that part of the project. So we're voting on something without technically having the funds available. But again, we're still anticipating level funding, and hopefully the government shutdown will end before January 1st, and those funds will be available. Hi, Kathy. You have a question?
Yeah, I should have asked you earlier. Is this the first time we've over obligated? I know it's 15,000 isn't that much when you look at the overall total amount of money, but is it our first time for over obligating?
Yes, even with the shutdown that happened before. Again, we are further constrained by the period of performance change that happened. We used to be able to complete work in that 3rd year. Now we need to have everything obligated in the 1st year so that the 2nd year the work can be done. So yes, and it's showing this, but again, the system doesn't necessarily reflect that because the payroll isn't obligated in the system. So it's just in anticipation. It's not like there aren't funds available to pay our bills. It's just that, you know, without further funding, we will run into issues.
Okay.
And so here's hoping the government will open up again. We will get our first of multiple contract continuing resolution award letters. And yeah, but to answer your question, this is the first time we have over obligated.
Okay.
But I don't see an issue at this point. We need to continue to work. And further discussion, should we not get our award letter, we will definitely come back to the council and address it. But at this point, I think we just need to move forward.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? And again, the project won't start until January. And so hopefully by that time we will have an award letter in hand. Generally by this time of year, we have our first award letter, but you know, this year has kind of been unprecedented. So
Yes, it has been, to put it mildly, right? So thank you. Thank you, Lonnie. I'm sure it's not been an easy job to try and juggle that and figure it out and hope and pray, as opposed to just calculate, right?
yes, it's been a challenge.
I'm sure. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I have a quick silly question on here. I'm looking at the names on there, Sonoran, you said. And I noticed there's 2 C's in Sonoran, you said, and 1 D. Has their name are there 2 C's in their name now? Has their name changed?
You know what? That's probably me.
Okay.
And
No.
cut and pasted. Thank you for bringing that up. I will get that fixed before full council. So thank you.
No,
And,
no.
well, and then
No
I'm
worries.
like, are they Sonoran you said, or are they Sonoran Center? Their name seems to be ever evolving. So I'm like,
Yes.
I'm not even sure what to call
Yeah.
them. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll just put in center.
Well, I'm right there with you because I've wondered too. I'm like, I know that their name is not the same as what it used to be. So thanks. Okay.
No, good call. I will get that fixed. Sorry.
No worries. No problem. Okay. Thank you so much, Lonnie. All right. On to agenda item D. Okay. Which is with John, Executive Director report. Thanks, John.
You bet. And by the way, there is a very nice, inelegant explanation for that. They are called the Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disabilities, but they are part of the University Centers for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities as mandated by the DD Act. So they are a USED, but they don't like to use the term USED. They like to go by Sonoran Center.
Okay. So I guess it's Sonoran Center is what we'll call them now.
Right. But technically they're a USED too. So anyway,
Got it.
well, welcome. Happy Monday. Let's talk about the federal budget. Because as Lonnie mentioned, and by the way, you are absolutely right, Melissa, it has not been an easy job for Lonnie to keep all of these numbers straight and keep all of our timing straight. So a round of applause, I guess, for Lonnie for the ability to do that and to make it comprehensible to the rest of us. Thank you very much. With regard to the federal budget, well, the federal government is, of course, still shut down. But if you've been watching the news yesterday or today, you know that apparently there is some kind of agreement in the Senate, which involves a number of Democratic senators being willing to vote for the Republican budget proposal, with the promise that there will be some kind of vote in December around the Affordable Care Act subsidies and perhaps a couple of other concessions, with no particular promises that ACA subsidies are going to continue or ACA tax credits are going to continue, but at least there will be a vote on them. There was a procedural vote last night to move that forward. It's all very messy, and I'm probably telling you stuff you already know, but it looks as though things are at least on a path to being resolved this week, and federal employees will be brought back to work. Federal employees will be paid for the month plus that they haven't been working. And perhaps most important to us, our contacts at ACL will be back on the job so we can actually move forward with a number of the things that we need to do. So, nothing I think is carved in stone yet, but it does look like there will be a federal budget signed somewhere in the near future, perhaps this week. And we will start getting those notices of award at some point that Lonnie mentioned, so we'll know exactly how much money we have available to us. That is as much as I know. Perhaps some of you know more. Perhaps that's as much as there is to know at this point. But I'm sure by the time the council meeting rolls around the end of next week, we'll have some additional information to share with you. I guess it's good news. I guess it depends also on your perspective, whether it's good news or bad news or you're neutral on it, but at least the government will be open, hopefully in the near future. With regard to our 2026 annual work plan, that was submitted, and on September 30th, just before the government shut down, we got an approval for that 2026 work plan. So that is what we are pursuing right now. federal fiscal year 2026. That's the plan that you all approved at the council meeting in August, or at the executive committee meeting, I think in August, council meeting in June. Ultimately, it got submitted in August, and we are good to go now. We are currently working on our fiscal year 2025 program performance report, or PPR, the infamous PPR. One of the problems with the shutdown is that we haven't gotten the actual PPR tool that we need to use, the template that allows us to input our information. That was supposed to have been shared with us on October 28th. Obviously, nobody was on the job on October 28th, or nobody at ACL anyway. So we did not receive that template. We do not have the form we need to fill in our information, and we will not have it until the government is back up and running and the folks at ACL have a chance to sort themselves out. Now, that may or may not be an issue. Our deadline to submit is December 30th. We're proceeding as though that deadline is going to hold. Given the delay in getting us the template, that may be shifted. You may recall that last year we were given some additional time. We were actually given until March to submit our fiscal year 24 PPR because there was a changeover in the format of the document, and ACL was not able to hire a contractor to develop the new template, and so they just delayed everything and gave us until March. This year, because of the shutdown, we may get a delayed deadline as well, but we would like to get that out of our hands and off our table by December 30th, if at all possible, because we know that the amount of work to do on the CRA and the state plan moving forward is going to be pretty monumental, and we don't want to have two major projects looking us in the face after the first of the year. So we're going to hope that, first of all, we get the template very soon. Secondly, we're going to proceed as though we're facing that December 30th deadline to get it submitted. Interestingly, we have not yet gotten approval of our fiscal year 2024 PPR. So I have on here fiscal 25 and 26. I should have put 24 and 25 because we have not yet received approval of the one we submitted last March. We are assuming everything is okay because in conversations we've had, just informal conversations we've had with the folks at ACL, they've indicated that everything is okay. But normally we get a written document, either an email or a letter that indicates the plan or the report has been approved. In this case, we don't have that yet. So, I'm not sure that it's the most important thing in the world, but it would be nice to have that in hand and know if there were any amendments or changes that the ACL was going to ask for. My guess is they're not going to ask for any, given the issues that they're facing right now. But we'll see. If we get that document, if we get that approval, I'll be certain to let you know. Just know that for right now, we're working on our fiscal 25, and that will be submitted next month. The last thing I want to mention, again, many of you are already aware of this, perhaps all of you are already aware of the things that are going on around access and DDD and some changes to the eligibility requirements for DD services through the state of Arizona. This all is a result of the budget battle that went on last spring in the legislature around funding, the supplemental funding for DDD. You might recall it was $120 million in the hole, needed a supplemental appropriation in order to remain solvent. That money eventually did come through, but not without a lot of wrangling, a lot of sleepless nights, and some mandated changes to the way DD services are made available, especially to the age 0 to 17 age group. Well, a new plan went into place on October 1st, a new plan that the governor's office agreed to and the legislature agreed to, and Access and DDD put together. And then on October 16th, the governor put a hold on that plan, saying that it needed more time for public input. Some of the elements of it needed to be reconfigured a little bit. In particular, the opportunity for review or reassessment in certain cases of exceptional need. So right now, Access and DDD are in the process, primarily Access, are in the process of putting together and finalizing a new version of the assessment tool, which is supposed to be made available to the public either this week or next week for public comment. There will be a period of comment a period of open comment available, and then that public comment will be taken into consideration, and the plan will be reintroduced with an effective date either of January 1st, probably, or of February 1st. Now, all of that, of course, could change too, depending on the input they get from the public. But in all likelihood, we are facing a situation that's not going to look dramatically different from what was introduced on October 1st, but there will be some new elements, again, that allow for appeals and redetermination in cases where family members feel that a child in particular has not been given adequate assessment or adequate services. So the long and short of this is that the legislature is demanding that DDD spend less money, and they're not willing to appropriate a huge amount more to continue to meet the needs of a growing service system. So Access and DDD are going to have to come up with a solution to this. And again, I don't think it's going to look substantially different from what was introduced on October 1st, and it's still going to cost a lot of families, a lot of individuals, some of the services they've been receiving for a while. Lots more to come on that. I will note that there is the likelihood, in fact, there is an absolute certainty that DDD is going to have to go back to the legislature this next session and ask for another supplemental appropriation. It was originally estimated to be about $80 million when their budget request was submitted in September. Now, with the delayed implementation of the changes to the system, it is likely to be 2 or 3 times that much, because the cost savings that were intended to be realized by these system changes are not going to be realized for a period of additional months. So look forward to another battle, another budget battle around DDD in this legislature. And it also is probably not going to be pleasant, just like last year's was not pleasant. I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, but again, I think most of you are probably familiar with all this, and we'll keep you updated as additional information comes through.
Are there any questions for John? Okay, stunned silence. All right, thank you, John. Let's move on to agenda item E, our ADDPC 2027-2023 state plan development with Megan from IHD.
Hey everybody. So I guess I'm going to give you kind of a full overview of the picture of the state plan, and then kind of separate it into what the CRA versus the other steps. So for the state plan development, the first thing that has to be done is this comprehensive review and analysis. And we've been working on that heavily over the last almost year. And at this point, the ad hoc committee has received the analysis that came from looking at all sorts of websites and reports and all sorts of written literature and information. They've received a report on the community conversations, and then we discussed the data from the survey that was given to people, both individuals and their family members sharing their experiences in their local areas, as well as organizations talking about the system barriers in their local areas and what they're seeing. And so they've been given all of those insights, and then they will be given the final report that really goes into the detail of that survey data. And then they've already provided us with their analysis of the issues and challenges through some facilitated discussion. And all of that comes together as gets kind of aggregated together to then be shared with the council to then move forward with the state planning. So while we're still finishing putting this all together in a polished report, all of the data is together and ready to be able to start moving forward with the state planning efforts. And so what that looks like is, meeting with the council, sharing this data to then help them provide guidance on what they think the priorities for the 5-year plan should be. So they're going to set these, this is through facilitated discussion, setting their, what they think the priorities are. And then a small work group will get together and put together goals and objectives, and all of those have to be rooted in the CRA's findings. Once those goals and objectives are, so let's add some timelines so I don't have to repeat all of this. So we're kind of thinking those priorities would get established at the November 21st council meeting. And then the goals and objectives work group will work separately over December and January to put all that together, again, facilitate it. And then at the January council meeting, the council would review those goals and the objectives and give any final changes, directives that they want, or more hopefully being approving those to go out for public comment. And then we're going to do a public comment and get input on it. And then there's time to react. We'll share those comments that are substantial with the council to then decide, do you want to keep the goals and objectives as is? A lot of the comments could probably be addressed in a work plan, but you'll have to decide. And then if we're moving forward with the goals and objectives as is, then we keep going through. Otherwise, we revise them. And this is substantial changes, like changing what the goal means, not is there a there, or a couple wordsmithing things. But if the essences of the goals change, then we go back for another round of public comment. And once those goals are locked, then, there has to be an evaluation plan written, a logic model, and then the staff needs to develop a work plan that goes together with a budget and assurances. So there's quite a few different steps that go forward into putting this together. So what we've, any questions on the overall process? Okay, so I think, oh, go ahead, Kathy.
Megan, at the meeting the other day, you made the comment that we had, I think I interpreted this correctly, that we had too many goals and objectives. I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. I hadn't thought about it that way, but I was wondering if we could just talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the number of goals and objectives, the target is going to be 2 to 3 goals and objectives. And that came from guidance from the Technical Assistance Center and from feedback from staff that the numbers of goals that are in your current state plan is a more undertaking than the staff is equipped to do. And we have to, that's part of the discussion. So as those priorities get set, and then the work group goes forward to set the goals and objectives, it needs to be right-sized to what is achievable by the council and the staff, given all of the resources that you have. And so there has to be a little bit of a balancing act. So that's what I can give you as to why we're leaning towards 2 or 3 goals and the rationale for that. But then John can chime in further with more specifics, and then anybody can chime in.
I'd be happy to. Megan is essentially correct. What we have learned through the course of this current 5-year plan is that having 5 different goal areas, and I think a total of 35 or 40 different activities, maybe it's more than that, under these particular goal areas is just more than our staff can really manage. Now, granted, a lot of that work is contracted out, but those contracts, those projects still need to be overseen by staff. There's still a lot of reporting that needs to be reviewed, a lot of interaction between staff and grantees, and then other things come up, other projects happen. Or other issues arise during the year that need to be dealt with that take time away from the work that's being done on those specific state plan or annual plan activities. So what we would like to do is concentrate our efforts into a smaller number of goal areas, which can still be quite expansive and can still offer us the opportunity to do a wide variety of different things. That wouldn't necessarily preclude work in, for example, the areas where we're doing work now, but we need to pull this back. We need to rein it in a little bit so that it's a little more achievable and so that it allows us to meet those kind of arising needs as they come up, and not be totally thrown off by surprises that come along. We also think it'll allow us to do a better job. Rather than being a mile wide and an inch deep, maybe we can be half a mile wide and be a little more successful. I will say that far too often now when we submit our PPRs, we are having to tell ACL that some of our projects are only partially completed, or perhaps that we've had to delay implementation of particular activities until the subsequent fiscal year. And that's not a good feeling. I don't think it's a good look for us, but it's an indication that we have a little bit too much on our plate.
Okay, thank you.
John, I do have a question for you, and I want to clarify because goal areas, objectives, activities, all the rest of it. And I know how that breaks down, like in my head. With goal areas, I think about our 5 goal areas, and then our objectives we're achieving under each one, and then there's specific activities underneath all of those. So I heard a couple different things. I want to be clear. Are we talking about not having all 5 or 4, or how many total areas are we going to focus on overall?
Yeah, my thought is that we should try to limit ourselves to 3 overarching goal areas.
Okay.
But within those goal areas, for example, and I'm just thinking out loud here, if we were to choose a goal area that we called community life or community living or community inclusion, something like that, that could encompass a lot of different things. That could encompass employment, education, the kinds of inclusion activities that we're doing now with language translation. It could be an umbrella under which a number of different things could fit. We're obviously not going to get rid of our self-advocacy work. I think it's fair to say we're not going to get rid of our employment work. Those are pretty fundamental to what this council has done for a number of years. And self-advocacy, of course, is mandated by ACL. So I don't know that we're going to eliminate the kinds of work we are doing right now. We're just going to, I think, limit the number of goal areas we have and focus some of those things. And this is just me talking. Ultimately, the decision is the council's. But my idea, in order to make things a little more feasible, a little more achievable for council staff and our grantees, is to pull these things back a little bit. Maybe not have as many activities. I don't think there's any question. We just have too many activities going on.
Agreed.
But not necessarily eliminate the areas where we're doing work. Just provide some additional focus in those areas.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Thank you so much.
So to build off that, if your 3 goal areas, those are the priorities, right? And then you have a handful of the objectives underneath them. But with the goal would be to have them as broad as possible, but as specific as necessary, so that you have the flexibility with the work plan and the activities, that as something is fit and a strong fit, and the council gives their directive of like, we really want to go after this, you can see how it fits into that plan, but also that it's specific enough that there's a guidance that you can filter out, well, this really fits with our priorities, or this does not fit with our priorities, to help with that decision making to prevent getting spread too thin. If that makes sense. It's a very difficult balance, and something that I'll be working very closely with that work group to strike, so that so you have the flexibility but the specificity within your planning.
So in the past, were we required by ACL to have 5 goals? No, we chose that.
No,
okay, I didn't
yeah,
realize that.
We can have as many or as few, I think, as we wish, so long as we include in those whatever fundamental requirements are, like self-advocacy or self-determination. The state of Texas, for example, Texas, I think, has the 2nd or 3rd largest appropriation of any council in the country. They have 2 goal areas. But they managed to fit the various types of work they do under those 2 goal areas. I would also emphasize that we have goals, objectives, and then activities. The goals and objectives are the things that, and Marcy can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the goals and objectives are the things we have to submit to ACL as part of our state plan. The activities can change from year to year. We can add, we can take away, as we accomplish something, we take that off of our work plan, we can add something additional in. So there is flexibility throughout the course of the 5 years. We don't have to try and, load everything into it right at the outset. And we can, I guess, change objectives if we need to. The goal areas should stay the same, but objectives, I think, can change a little bit too under certain circumstances. It's not ideal, but we could do it. The point is that the activities do not all need to be identified at the beginning. There's kind of an ebb and flow to those.
Okay.
The objective is pretty solid because those are what go out for public comment as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's the big picture of the process. And so the CRA scope of work will be finished by December 31st as planned. One thing that was not clear in the scope of work that we've decided with John's guidance is we are making sure that it is available in Spanish as well, and that fits within the existing budget. And then we saved a lot of money in that budget on the community conversations than what we had included. And so there was a little bit of flexibility. So as we move into the state planning process, the activities that will happen in the year 2025 calendar year can still fit under the existing budget and the savings that we've managed to incur from the CRA development. And then, and I'm not covering that whole budget, I'm just giving you the quick overview of that. And then we kick off in January with this finishing the state, finishing the developing of the goals and objectives and going into public comment and that whole process. I think that's everything you wanted me to talk about, right, John?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And actually, I think a number of folks on the call are already familiar from their work on the State Plan Development Committee. So I'm hoping this isn't a surprise to anybody. We're happy to answer any other questions folks have. Okay. Well, then I think sorry, Melissa, did you have a question?
Nope, I'm just getting back on because I know we have to vote to move this to full council.
Right.
Or
So,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we need to share with you what the year 2 scope of work looks like and present the contract proposal for your review. I'm going to leave it open to Megan or Marcy, whoever wishes to take the lead on that. Marcy, do you want to do an overview?
Segue into it. I'm going to let Marcy take the next step with whatever needs to be discussed in the details.
Okay.
That's fine. So, John, that's really small. Can you just blow it up a little bit? So I'm making sure I'm looking at the January through September. Thank you. So we worked with Kelly and Megan on, basically what Megan presented on going forward with this scope of work for the work that's going to be undertaken beginning in January. So as she explained, pretty soon there's going to be a committee that's going to be working on developing the goals and objectives. They're going to have 4 meetings starting in December, 2 meetings before the holidays really kick in, and then 2 more meetings in early January to present a draft of that for the full council, for executive and for the full council at the January meeting. And it's just a draft. So because that needs public comment, and 45 days really eats a lot in the calendar when this needs to be, when you're looking at a deadline date of August. So this scope of work really kind of starts the beginning, the clock ticking in January of all the work Megan's going to be doing with staff and the committee. And if you just look at the timeline itself, which is really detailed instead of me going through the full proposal, it outlines what she kind of laid into about how we're going to move forward with the specific tasks. So during the 45-day period, once the council kind of gives its blessing to move ahead, knowing that there could be, wordsmithing and some changes, but we'll be notating that. We're giving the public comment period 45 days for it to go out, and we're going to be working on tracking those, or Megan will be tracking those comments as they come in. And it's going to be right before the March meeting when we're going to have everything where Megan can present what more or less these comments are coming back, whether they agree or don't agree, or we're leaving something out. But one of the key things Megan stated is substantial changes to the goals and objectives. And I don't have really a good definition of what that means. I think if comments are generally like, oh, I agree with them technically, or wish the agencies would focus more on DD services, for example, or eligibility or something like that. Those are things that are kind of out of our loop. So just remember, we have to think about what our funding can do to impact the system and where we can support the system. Or what are the activities that we can technically consider and fund coming out of these goals and objectives. So, but if there are substantial changes where we left something off, or the council thinks we need to add something back in, we're going to have to revise those goals or objectives and put it out for public comment again for another 45 days. We're going to try not to do that because that is a huge it really just, like, again, eats at our calendar time to kind of work things through. The other thing I just want to point out in this proposal part of it is there's a lot of tasks that Megan mentioned she's going to help develop with staff, is an evaluation plan, which is required of us to submit to the Fed. So it tells us how we are going to evaluate our objectives, our activities. So we need to know how we're going to be evaluating basically our individual activities. So she's going to help draft that up, which is going to be very helpful so that we know how to develop that when we start the activities. The other thing is a logic model, and it kind of like speaks about resources going towards each of these goals. And so there's different models out there, and Megan will help develop one that supports this particular 5-year plan. At the same time, we have to develop, which is going to be part of the council's work with staff, is a 2-year annual work plan. So if you're very familiar with that grid that spells out all the activities and the dollar amounts, if it's a grant and who's responsible, and the update, where we're at with the update of the progress, that's the annual work plan. We don't know if there's going to be any changes that the feds require, but we're going to use the same template, but forecast it out for 2027 and 2028. Those 2 years have to automatically be submitted in with everything that Megan has done. The whole CRA data has to be submitted in, as well as the survey and the public input, the evaluation, and the logic model, and then 2 years of this annual work plan. We're going to begin working on that as the public comment period is happening. We're going to need a lot of time to sit down and work and think about what projects are going to continue into 2027 and 2028, what activities we're currently funding that possibly could continue into the next work plan. So we need to think about some of these projects that were just awarded. Many of them have not even begun because the contracts haven't even been reviewed or finalized by the USAID. So that's a delay in their part, which is going to be quite a headache for everybody. But we need to start having those conversations pretty soon, like right after Thanksgiving. We need to start thinking about how we plan that, because the other thing that is concerning is when we do receive the notice of award of funding, we're going to be behind already on figuring out what to do with these funds and how to spend them, because the obligation and the project period is so short. So we're going to be, looking for ideas as well to support. So we're kind of it's very muddled. I don't know if I'm explaining this well enough, but it's just very hard to kind of put this together when there's so many questions that we're going to have, and we're going to be asking you guys to help kind of guide that process. So the budget for Megan is through September 30th of all this work. August 15th is the deadline to submit the whole 5-year plan and the 2-year annual work plan and the budget, etc. And Megan has, Kelly has forecasted, if you see, primarily it is driven by IHD staff, which is very helpful, and then additional couple $100, I believe, in the supply area. And the total amount comes to, with indirect, am I looking at the right amount? 50,381. Someone help me, Lonnie, John. I don't know if I'm looking at the right dollar amount.
Yes,
the
50,381.
Okay, 50,381 is the requested amount for Megan and IHD to with her staff and Kelly to help finalize the whole next activities through September 30th. And the other part of this too is we've had conversations. Megan and her team are going to develop some resources in plain language that staff can take back to the communities that we visited and on our website to share what the council did and is planned to do going forward. So we really think it's important just to loop back to those folks who provided input and participated in those town halls around the state. And, you know, they're not going to be in charge of organizing them, but certainly staff has the ability to go back to those communities, you know, not in a 2-month period, but maybe take, you know, throughout 2 or 3 communities a month, and then try to circle back and meet with folks and share with them these, you know, what the council did and how they're going to move forward and still participate. It's very important that we still try to meet with, especially those communities that feel so, don't feel like they have a lot of say in what happens down in Maricopa County and the legislature, state agencies, and feel that it's really important. So we really appreciate, you know, Megan and her staff's ability to kind of take this into, you know, the resources that we can use and share. And so that's part of the cost as well. So I hope I explained pretty well enough. Megan, do you want to add anything more than what I hopefully covered?
I think that you captured that scope of work quite well. You know, and one thing that you and John and Lonnie and I have all talked about a lot, you know, with that substantial changes to the goals, that's like adding a goal or like a total change to the goal. We're expecting that most of the feedback that comes in, if it's substantial, is stuff that can be addressed via the work plan. And
right.
So, but we do have in the scope of work and in the timelines time for a second public comment period worked in, and a backup plan if need be to react to that second set of comments, because it's really important that if we're getting the public's comments, that we're hearing them and using them and not just doing it to check a box.
Right.
So that's more worked into this as well.
Right. Thank you for that. And the other thing too is just, I think as we are moving through this, Melissa, it's really important that, you know, the committee, whether it's the work plan committee, the executive committee, you know, though we have set dates for like executive and full council, I think one meeting was moved back to March to kind of help support where we're at with the timeline and get approval and, you know, feedback and approval, stuff like that. You know, sending information out to you guys to keep everyone in the loop is gonna, you know, John will be able to handle that part of it. And, you know, obviously I believe whatever is the last meeting that the council is going to have before staff internally starts working on the submission of this full thing to the feds, is we're going to need all, you know, most of summer to do it, to be quite honest with you. We don't even know the template yet. You know, obviously, if you see us, you know, kind of frustrated with the feds and the PPR template, well, you can imagine what this template is going to also be a headache and how they're going to handle it. We don't have any sort of communication whatsoever from the feds yet. But that doesn't stop us from knowing the components of it, which we are working on. And that has been pretty much spelled out. There's been no changes with that. So it's really a matter of what the feds are going to come out to say, here's your template to submit your 5-year plan. And we're not giving any extensions, obviously. So we have this timeline pretty packed to get things in. And one final thing that John knows that he has to do is we have assurances, that is a list of assurances that the federal government requires all federal recipients to sign off. It's a bunch of legal language and law things to comply with. And that has to be signed off from DES, from the director of DES. And so John is aware to communicate with our contacts at DES about this form that needs to be signed off, but also to submit, not submit the CRA data itself, but probably submit the goals, the objectives, and our annual work plan with our budget to support, so that they could see what the work that the council is doing, and answer any questions that they may have, and get that signed off, because that has to be submitted as well to ACL, which is so we want to at least allow some time in the late spring, early summer to get that into DES. So a lot of different moving parts.
Okay, that is a lot, but thank you all so much. I know I've had to miss some of those meetings or part of them, so thank you really for the work. And Kathy, I know you've done a ton with that too, so thank you. Okay. On this, the motion, what motion would you like me to call for specifically with this to move to full council?
If you put it in a very nice way, but it's basically to approve IHD's year 2 scope of work to support the development of the state plan for 50,831. Contract beginning January 1 through September 30th, 2025. So something related to that.
Okay, so hang on a second. So development of our state plan and the amount of, did you say 50,831?
Yes.
And
381.
381? Yeah,
381,
okay.
sorry.
That's okay. I wrote that 50,831.
381.
Thank you. A little dyslexic today. Okay. And then the exact date frame that you wanted on that was January
1 of 2026 through September 30th of 2026.
Okay, thank you. I know the wording matters, so thank you.
Melissa, can I just make a comment right quick?
Of course.
So when we talk about this to the full council, could you expand a little bit on what you will be doing in public comment? I know you put digital media. Could you expand on that? Because in a lot of my reviews of states' applications for various programs, they put it out there on the internet and they do nothing else. And so I think if, in all honesty, we've gone out there, asked for their opinion. How are we going to ask for their opinion as input? I hope it's more than just sticking it out there on the internet, hoping they'll read the plan and then comment back to us. So, that's my comment.
It'll be, the comments are only coming in digitally, as it says, so it's a survey type of form kind of thing that they'll fill out. And there's a plain language version of the goals and objectives, as well as the official writing of the goals and objectives that people can go through. Now, the promotion and soliciting the public comments falls on ADDPC. So I'll have the tool and the accessibility and the monitoring all on my team. And then ADDPC is going to be the ones that are really trying to get those comments.
And is the tool specific questions that kind of forces somebody or requires somebody to go in and look at the document? Or is it something like, I approve the goals and objectives of ADDPC? I'm curious to see.
It's going to be more open end of like, here is, they'll have the supporting document, but built right into the tool. I have to kind of really do a little bit of research on the ease of access, but the whole point is to make it easy for them to give actual feedback. So I
Yeah.
don't want a checkbook of, yeah, I approve. It's more so, hey, what is your feedback, and opening it up. Now, whether that, to me, ease of access would be to go goal by goal by goal for that feedback soliciting, instead of just overall, what's your feedback? And that would give us the most actionable information as well. But it will be very open-ended that people can type it in. I'm not going to formalize it as to multiple choice, because
Okay.
that's not public comment.
Right,
So-
right. I just know that a lot of them go up on the web and they say, oh, if you have any comments, read it and go to this website. And then they don't get any public comment back. So I think, I like us being more intentional,
There'll be prompts to help stimulate the opportunity for comment.
Okay.
And that helps guide it so that it is useful and meaningful, but still keeping it flexible that people can give whatever comments they feel needed.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not sure everybody feels that way, but I, just like, and I just don't like an exercise that you do, but you get nothing back from it. So.
Unfortunately, when you hired me, everything has meaning. Like I hate data analysis without meaning behind it and how you're going to use it. So that's the underlying, not unfortunately, I think it's a good thing, but some people that might want to just check boxes might not be so happy about that.
Okay, thank you.
Megan, if you don't mind, this is Kelly. I'm curious, being that this feedback, you've gotten lots of feedback along the way. This will be electronic, and I'm asking this for the rest of the group, kind of, how then it will be integrated into the overall plan.
So in the actual state planning, there's a section related to public input. And now this is not quite spelled out in the template because it's different than how it was done last time. But what we're going to do is be summarizing how we gathered public input to the CRA, and then also summarizing how we gathered public input into the actual goals and objectives, which would be summarizing how ADDPC solicited the public comments, summarizing the type of mechanism that we gathered it. So it'll be like, hey, prompts were given as well as open opportunity. It was all open answer, something along those lines. And then summarizing what the input of the substantial comments were and how we separated that out. All of that will be written in one of the deliverables in our scope of work to then be inserted into the CRA. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I just want to make sure people were aware of that. It's not just going to be data that's collected and then not used.
And then those community-facing documents that Marcy talked about, those are what communicates it to the community as to how both exercises went into it. I mean, it's hard to, is it going to be just, hey, public input was requested, or do we give more? And it kind of depends on what's needed and the guidance from the IHD team as we put that together.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no more comments or questions for Megan, I'm going to make the motion. Okay. So I'm going to call for a motion to approve IHD's Year 2 scope of work to support the development of our state plan and the amount of $50,381 for the time period of January 1st, 2026 through September 30th, 2026. Do I have a motion?
I make the motion.
Thank you, Monica. Do I have a second?
This is Kathy. I second it.
Thank you, Kathy. All those in favor of approval, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All
Did you
those.
get that, Melissa?
I got that. Thank you, Monica.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. All those opposed, please say nay. Is anyone abstaining?
This is Kelly. I'm abstaining. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Okay. Moving on to agenda item F, and thank you Megan, thank you so much. That was thorough and most appreciated. Okay, our announcements. Does anybody have any announcements that they would like to make?
Oh,
Yes.
Melissa?
Oh, gosh,
We
I'm
do-
sorry. Holy cow,
It's okay.
sorry, it skipped. I don't have the agenda open on my desk. I was looking and it was below that. Okay, actually, we do have to go to agenda item.
F.
Yeah, I know, I can't see. I'm like, it's not
It's
all
the
the way
full,
down.
that's okay. It's the full council.
No, I got it. I just can't, never mind. So, guys, I'm not feeling well, so I'm like, I'm really sorry. Okay, this is our full council agenda. Kind of similar. You can come in person as usual. You can come on our meeting as we do virtually. I'll be there virtually. I love our staff, but I come in. I'm usually the only other person there. Okay.
But we love having you here, so feel free to come by anytime.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. So I know. Are we good?
John just needs to
Yeah,
make the change under his director report to take out 2026 PPR.
Yeah, I need to correct that. There is another topic I want to address related to rural health transformation grants. I'll dispense with that quickly. And then I wanted to point out that we've provided a little more detail under Megan's section. And as you can see, the vast majority of the meeting is going to relate to the CRA and the state plan. Megan's going to go into quite a bit more detail in the full council meeting than she did today related to the work that's been done and the work that remains to be done. And included in that will ideally be some discussion among council members around our priorities, our activities, thoughts, perspectives, etc. So we hope this will be a robust conversation. And as you can see, we have, because of the amount of time needed for that, we have dispensed with committee reports for this particular council meeting. Most committees, other than state plan development, which is an ad hoc committee, most of the other committees have not met in the last 2 months anyway, so there wouldn't be much point to having reports.
Agreed. Good plan. Good plan. Okay. Any questions on this agenda? Anybody? Okay. I'm looking forward to that discussion. All right. Okay. All right, guys. Now we'll move on to agenda item G. Are there any announcements? I miss JJ because he usually is telling us about some stuff they've got going on over there behind a dress. So, okay. Agenda item H, call to the public. The only member I note not council member is Megan, so I'm going to dispense with that one. Okay. Agenda item I, I'm gonna adjourn. Everybody, thank you so much for your time today. And I will call this meeting adjourned at 11:06 a.m. And John, I will stay on with you
Okay,
for our chat.
very good.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thanks for being here. Gotta grab a pen. Okay, we gotta stop.